It's a new week, and therefore a new episode. So coming up on Worlds Asunder.
Visual-minded person in terms of how I see things in my head and what I think will look cool. Like I grew up buying comic books because I liked the covers on the comic books. I hardly ever read the comic books. I would read some, but for the most part, I just like a cool cover.
As storytellers, we want to capture the hearts, minds, and imaginations of our readers, mainly through our expertly crafted worlds.
Creating new worlds in any genre might seem like a daunting task, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel for every story.
Welcome, weary writers, to Worlds Asunder, a world-building and writer's life podcast.
My co-host is David Shadoin, better known as Shady. It's not just a descriptor, it's also his moniker.
And she's H.Y. Gregor, or you can call her Haley, your friendly post-apocalyptic wasteland elf.
Together, we've got enough published to fill a small shelf, but why should you listen to us? Because we called in some favors.
Every other week, we bring you the best and brightest to give you the tips and tricks on world building and character building like the pros. So, open up your ear holes.
Get out your pen and paper.
And get ready for us to tear Worlds Asunder. And please judge this book by its cover, part 1. Open up your ear holes. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Worlds Asunder, the only world building podcast on the internet, delivering you world building with a slice of artistic starvation.
That doesn't work.
You'll
because
understand
you're not
that
shoving a
reference
sandwich
in a
in your
minute.
face anymore.
Oh, that's true. I was real hungry right before we started recording. As always, my co-host is Haley, H.Y. Gregor, who also couldn't wait for the potatoes to cool before she bit into them.
I didn't burn my tongue. It's fine.
I am your man without a plan, Shady David Shadoin. And today we have a fun guest with us. We're gonna dive into a different medium today, and so you'll understand my reference here in a little bit. But our guest today makes badass art for badass stories and authors. Full of grit and storytelling, his work is geared to instantly capture attention using 3D modeling software combined with digital painting and a host of other assets. He has fully custom creations to play with perspective and scale in a way few other covers in the industry do. His publishing partners and clients include LMBPN, CKP, Chris Kennedy Publishing, and Podium. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest today is Jake Clark, or J. Caleb Designs.
Howdy. Glad to be
Jake,
here.
we are super excited to have you on today.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
We got to meet you at MarsCon this year.
Mm-hmm.
And as I started kind of looking through all the different covers you've done for Chris Kennedy Publishing, I realized most of the anthologies I've been in with them, it had some of your art or had your art on it. So
Yeah, man. Yep, there's one right there.
like Talons and Talismans.
Yeah.
There's Paladins of Valor.
Yep.
Shady and I are both in this one. Very cool.
Oh, yeah, really?
This is the
Awesome.
latest one. I love this one.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
That was the latest.
I like the
fantasy
color
anthem.
scheme.
My Valor one's got a lot better after like the first one. The
Well,
first one,
oh yeah, no, your Valor ones are real solid, and then the We Dare. That one's Old Age of Treachery. I think you did. Did you do all of the We Dare covers, or?
I did. They did. I think No Man's Land, and I did. That was the first one I did.
Okay.
And then I did the one with the cowboy who's kind of like pulling the gun out on the space station with the dog.
Yeah.
And then I did that one right there.
And I have a story in Old Age and Treachery only because Chris Kennedy had to back out of that one. That's how I ended up with a spot in that one. But
Right on, man.
I'll take it. So we're talking about your book covers, and we got to see some examples there of some awesome stuff. And if you want to see more of his portfolio, go to J. Caleb Design. But walk us through a little bit your mindset when you're building when you're starting to build a cover? Like, how are you choosing characters and setting?
Generally the author will give me some general specifics. I don't have to read. I get asked all the time, "Do you read the book?" And the answer is no, I don't read the book. It's just I don't have the time to dive into it that much. And honestly, the fact that I don't read it, or the fact that cover designers don't read the story, we kind of it gives us kind of an edge, in my opinion, because we can come at it from the side of being a cold reader. Even though we're not going to necessarily be the reader of the book, we can come at it from the idea of I can read a brief and read about characters and kind of that kind of stuff, and then I can go, okay, well, this is what I would focus on over everything else. Like I might get a 2 or 3 page brief with all this kind of stuff, settings, characters, and all that, and I'll go, okay, well, these are the elements that would probably be the hot topic elements or hot button imagery for the cover, so that we can hit the target market like we need to attract readers and get eyes on it. And so, I mean, it starts there, and I'm a very visual minded person in terms of how I see things in my head and what I think would look cool. Like I grew up buying comic books because I like the covers on the comic books. I hardly ever read the comic books. I would read some, but for the most part, I just like a cool cover. And so, I've always geared myself that way. And even the artwork I drew as a kid, even as a teenager, was along that same lines. It was very pin-up-y in the sense that it's just a character, very character-focused in some way, shape, or form. And so I think I've been kind of honing my eye since I was a young boy up until now. So,
well, and you said it, and we already saw the covers, right? The covers do focus on characters right up front. So when you try and exactly like that badass cover right there. When you try and to help define characters, right? Because these characters do, all the ones we showed are anthologies that both myself and Haley are in. Do you get a little bit of like the backstory, or do you try and come up with some kind of like extra details you can give them to help immerse readers before they've even opened the book?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, sometimes an author will give me a really detailed image of the main character, and all the little points are kind of already augmented out and that kind of stuff. But like I think like with treachery there, if I had my email pulled up, I could probably find that email and read you the brief that I got for that, which would have probably been a total of like 4 sentences long, and it would have been, I think, along the lines of, if I remember correctly, it was they gave me the title. It was Old Age and Treachery, and so they gave me a few of the characters in terms of like ones to maybe highlight and that kind of stuff. And so that lady was mentioned, and I can guarantee you there wasn't a lot of details mentioned about her, but it was just the fact that she was going to be tough, need to be a shrewd looking, handle my own business type lead female. And so from there, I kind of put the pieces together of what I think would look cool, and and what I think would connect with people who are going to want to pick up the book. So I fill in the gaps where I can, and then if there are specifics, I lay them out. But there's a lot of things I realize now. There's a lot of things that authors typically don't always focus on, because you're in a world of text, and so unless there's like just some real cool thing aspect to the outfit or the clothing, generally it's like leather jacket, t-shirt, jeans. There's not a lot to it, because that's not really a piece of the cover, a piece of the story. That's just something you got to say to continue the story going on. And so that gives me a little bit of play there to kind of flesh out and flare out some things. So,
gotcha.
What mistakes do you see authors making most often with their cover designs or their cover briefs?
The 2 main ones are usually that they want too much information, too much to show too much. They want to have all these pieces on there, and they don't know how, and there's no account of how that actually looks on a cover. And so like when you start trying to place things scale wise, perspective wise, all of a sudden things start kind of not really lining up like you want to. Like right now I'm doing a cover for a guy, and it's a pirate cover. And so, he kind of wanted the whole smorgasbord of things on there. There's a dragon, a sea serpent on there. There's a sea serpent. There's battles between ships. There's the bad guy. There's the main female lead. There's all these pieces. And when we were doing our initial call, I was like, this is all great stuff, but you need to boil this down. Let's focus on just the female lead, because she alone will carry so much of the cover. Just because a female lead on a cover looking tough and badass will immediately capture attention if it's done right. And so I was like, everything else needs to be tertiary. And so we scale everything else back. We focus on her and build the cover around her. And so authors don't take that into, it's because most authors aren't geared to think that way. So they want to give too much information, or they have a very, very specific idea in mind. Like, I want it to be just like this, da 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 da. And I've done probably 2,000 covers or so, give or take 100. And I've rarely read a brief or read an idea where the author gave a good idea that I was like, let's do that. Like, in terms of like specifics. Now, like they give me details, and then they're like, hey, you can go you can go and run with this. Here's my character. Here's the setting. You make the cover. You put it together, and that works. But when they're like, it's got to have this character here, this character here, this is here, this is here, this is here, and all that stuff, they start being very specific. Most of those covers don't end up looking really well. And the covers that I've done, like, and I'm happy to do that. You're a paying client, but those covers won't. And I'll try to talk you out of it, but those covers won't make my portfolio. They won't be shown, and they just go into the ether. So.
Well, and I can imagine that part of that problem is that if you're trying to recreate whatever's in their head, right, it's never going to quite match because it's in their head, and you're trying to just do it based, Pictionary style.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like it's not that there's any ill intent toward that type of cover. It's just again, you guys are really good at text stuff. You're really good at writing words out and making them sound really awesome and composing a story and compositing a story together. I'm really good at visually showcasing or telling a story in a one image or two image, and that's a different skill set. And so, I'm not. So it's just a matter of a skill set thing. So, and authors who are doing it themselves or self-publishing, I get it. You have to take. You're in the driver's seat all the time. Like, you're the one that has to like do all this stuff and get all this lined up, and so you just take the reins in it. But if you end up dealing with a professional cover artist, there should be a trust issue, a trust thing there of they're a professional. They can take the ball now and run with it for you. You're at the point where you got the who, not how to get it done, who's going to get it done. And I'm going to hire whoever to get it done, and trust them to go with it.
So one of the reasons I think authors, we get precious about our covers is because of the world building, right? Like, because that's the primary focus of this podcast and most of our episodes. And with your pirates, you're like, but I worked so hard and I worked on the ships and I had the battle and it's all awesome. How do you still project some of those elements in a cover when you've pared it down?
Yeah. If the cover was approved and ready to ship, I would show you guys the pirate one. Because like I said, he wanted all these pieces on the cover. And for me as a cover artist, I want the author to be happy with the cover too. I want to honor that world building because, I mean, again, it is your unique story. And we're not trying to just, broad stroke, generic archetype people in here. We want to make sure that it's something that connects to the author, so they're proud of it too. And so, I try to take it with care in the sense that, I want to make sure I'm meeting their expectations, but also I also want them to be successful so that when they put this cover out in the world, they put the story out in the world, they're going to get sales so that they can continue to be successful. And so, like with that pirate ship one, man, I did what I said. I was like, let's put her on the main focal point, and then we scaled back all the other pieces. And so instead of having her on the ship, I ended up changing it. I took a liberty and put her on like a shoreline where she's standing like ankle deep in water, and you can see the ship battle, but it's way back there in the back. You can see them kind of firing back and forth, and you can see the serpent kind of come up out of the water. And it actually went together really, really well. I was a little had a little trepidation in putting all that because there's so many pieces there. But because we focused on the one and scaled back the others, we were still able to build the world and show that world without overcrowding the cover, in the sense that when somebody sees it, they go, I don't know what's going on, it's too complicated, or there's just so much going on, I can't decipher it. And we ended up with a pretty clear cut image. So it
sounds a little bit like you're saying kind of simplistic design is almost better than putting too much in, right? Which is a common theme here on Worlds Asunder. When we're talking about world building, like authors, we tell a lot of authors too that, you know, you're going to do a lot of this world building behind the scenes, but not all of it needs to make the book, or you risk becoming an encyclopedia. And it kind of seems like you're saying very much so the same with the cover. If you put too much there, it's just too much noise.
Yeah, exactly, man. That's 100% it. Like, you know, I don't know much about world building in terms of a novel, but like I know, you know, if you mention randomly in your story the cult of Rail, and then you don't mention them again, but you just drop that little nugget, all of a sudden the reader will go, oh, there's all these little pieces. There's something else going on here that I might not know about, you know. But just dropping that little nugget can you know bring life to the world without having to info dump what the cult of Rail would be. You know, same thing when you're doing a cover. Like there's these little pieces where we highlight this one thing, but there's little details, Easter eggs, whatever you want to look at them like, and you can showcase those. And when they're seen, people go, oh, what's that about? But then they're not necessarily all. You're not info dumping the whole entire story onto the cover.
Before we get too far into this, we've been talking a lot about cover design. Other than book covers, what else do you work on?
Nothing. I do cover art, man. That's all I do night and day. You know, and that's it. I cook on the side. I love cooking. I love hiking and rucking and that kind of stuff. But in terms of like creative stuff, I do cover art. That's my main thing. As far as it goes. And so
I'm gonna throw you under the bus. He does really badass stickers too.
Oh, stickers, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I randomly get some creative wild hairs in there that I explore. I've got a 3D printer sitting right here on my floor that I have not put together yet. That I'm actually hoping maybe I can take the 3D characters I design and transport them into 3D printed pieces just to see if I can do it. And I look forward to doing that. But I bought that back in November, so you can clearly see I've had a lot of time to devote to it since it's end of February right now.
Well, hopefully it means business is good.
It is right now for sure. Yeah.
So that actually, one of the things I was going to ask you about was how you do your 3D modeling, because you are able to do some really unique things as far as characters go for the covers that you work on. Could you talk us kind of through that process and why you do it that way as opposed to using like stock photography or other things?
Yeah, I started out. Actually, I started out doing just you didn't ask this part, but I started out with doing silhouettes. Like my early covers were all silhouette driven covers because I could make a silhouette without having to buy stock photography. I didn't have any money, and I could cobble stuff together and do minimalistic covers. I've always been a big minimalistic like poster fan, that kind of stuff. So I always tried to get clients that wanted that kind of style. And then I got more into the stock photography. And I'm gonna be honest with you, that stock photography, that's a hunt. Like you spend hours trying to find a jacket, trying to find the pose, trying to find this, and then it's not quite right, and you have to go in there and tweak it around and make it look right. The lighting's not right, and so it's always been a hassle. And so I got into 3D modeling, which is done on this computer right here, and by doing that, it's allowed me to I take control of the characters. Like I can take them. We can take one character. I can use them across the entire series. No photographs have to be taken. No licenses are used at that point. I own the render. When it's rendered, it's mine. And I can light them how I want them. I can change expressions. I can change angles. I can do that. So it's just so much more control. And then once you have the character built, like if we do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books. I did one character across 18 covers, and like we just did the same character. I mean, she never wanted to change the outfit or anything. So it was just the character was done, change the lighting, change the background, bang, we're done. Keep on rolling, And so it works really well. It makes it a lot of streamline. It streamlines a lot of the process. It keeps consistency across the entire cover. And then, like I said, there's no photos to hunt down, no license to worry about or anything like that.
So how important is consistency across a series then?
It's 100% important. You know, the branding is critical across the board. I mean, there's going to be your author brand, which is you as an author, and then there'll be like your series brand, which is how your series looks across how many ever books it is, whether it's 3, 6, 9, or how many ever you write in your series. It's tremendous because as people, we're visually inclined to look for the same things, to look for routines, that's why stop signs are all red. That's why green lights are all green. It takes the thought process away. We don't have to think about it anymore. We just see it and know it immediately. And that's a trick in the trade of cover design, which is, back to the earlier point, if your cover's too busy, people literally will not take the time to decipher something like that. Their mind will go, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that is. I'm not going to decipher it. I'm going to move on. It's just like the same thing when you see a wall of text come in on a text message. When you get it and it fills up your entire screen, or you see the email and it's just one big block of text with no paragraphs or breaks or anything, and your mind goes, I'm not reading this right now. I don't even want to look at this. I don't like this. I don't want. And it's the same exact thing. Donald Miller, who wrote Story Brand, which I don't know if you guys have heard of that book or not. It's a fantastic book, by the way. But in Story Brand, he says, I'm going to butcher the quote, but consumers won't always buy the best product. They'll buy the product they can understand the quickest. And, the same thing, and that goes right in the cover design. Like, consumers may not always buy the best written story if it's got a crappy cover. They'll buy the cover that they can understand the quickest, because that's going to be your doorway into that world, the one they can understand the quickest, and then they'll read the blurb, and then they'll find out, and then they'll go from there, so.
So, you're talking, we're doing a lot of like essentially marketing talk. I guess I'll start with this question. Do you do any of the kind of like market research if you're designing a cover into a specific genre?
If it's a genre I'm not familiar with, I will. Like, I've got a cover right now for YA paranormal mystery, if I'm not mistaken, out this morning, and so that's a little bit outside my normal. Not quite along the same threads that I typically do. But so today, I was doing my concepting. I got on, Goodreads, on Amazon, on a couple different websites, and just looked at some of the covers. And the author gave me some would be like competitor covers in her genre. And, I just kind of looked around and kind of got a feel for what was there. And then thought, okay, how can I take some of these trends that are in the market now for YA readers, and now how can I take her story elements and put them together to make a cover that hits the market but also honors her story, And so I was actually really really happy how my sketch came out. So I'm really excited to actually get it knocked out. But yeah, if it's fantasy or sci-fi, I generally don't do a lot of market research anymore because. I'm a big fantasy sci-fi reader, so I probably do it unconsciously because I'm always looking for new books to read too. And I'll see some trends. I'll go, oh, that's pretty neat. I'm gonna work that into another book cover. But for the most part, like I have a pretty fair grasp on the sci-fi and fantasy genres. I would think so. I don't do much there.
Gotcha. So then the follow-on question for our newer authors. What kind of advice can you give them on doing market research when they're trying to come up with like styles or briefs to give you?
Yeah. I would take it in the sense that you get on Amazon, a fantastic place to go look. I know they aren't the most altruistic corporation, but they're going to be good for market research. Top 100. One of the things you can look at in that, a little nugget, a little tip. If you go to the top 100 fantasy paid, you're going to get certain authors. If you go to the top 100 free, you're going to get a whole different bottle of covers to look at. Because in the paid ones, you're going to have even the big names, the Robert Jordans and whoever. They're always going to be up there. And so there's going to be some ones in there that are like I would say outliers, because Robert Jordan can put his name on whatever, it's going to sell. Same thing. They can recover Tolkien again. It's going to sell. So I mean, it's not like they're, those guys you kind of have to look at and go, I might be able to take a note from their covers, but let's look at the trend at a whole. So take a 30,000 foot view at the 100 instead of trying to go, oh, this one cover I like, when there's no other covers in there that are like that. If you got one outlier, I wouldn't focus on maybe just the one outlier. So 30,000 foot view there. That's going to be the number one thing to do. And then be inspired by the other fantasy things that are around you. Like, just because it's not a fantasy book doesn't mean it can't be something you can use as a trend, like board games and stuff like that. Some of the tabletop games have really nice artwork that, again, can go along that same line with fantasy. Now it's going to be fantasy and sci-fi and stuff. But now if you're doing, if it's some other genre like YA or romance or whatever, then there's not really a lot of other tropes other areas you can pull from. But yeah, I mean, it's not that complicated, but it's just about taking that 30,000 foot view and saying, okay, I see these repetitive things. How can I take that and use it to my advantage so that when readers see my book, they know it's a fantasy or it's X genre, and they're going to want to find out more. So
I feel like the prevailing theme that I took out of Superstars for a lot of, like, for marketing and for storytelling and from your cover class that you taught was same but different. Like, I heard that so many times at Superstars, was how do you do the same thing that everyone else is doing but also stand out, which super easy.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you can look at it like maybe maybe 70-30 rule, 60-40 rule. Like if I'm going to, like for me, like those covers you showed earlier with my stuff, like, I'm not reinventing the wheel. I mean, it's just a badass looking chick holding a gun, walking through a sci-fi corridor. So I took 60% of something you've seen before, and then the 40% I took and made it unique to that anthology, or 70-30, however you want to look at it. Because again, you're going back into what people look at as readers look to things that are familiar, so that they can take the quickest route to understand this is something I want to find out more about. So you're playing off of that psychology there, or not psychology, but that practiced Pascal Bell dog thing. That's going to be in that. It's going to be in that same trend, or same parallel. I don't know words, but you know what I'm saying.
We words good too.
Yeah, words are real hard. Don't worry. And yeah, go ahead, Shady. Sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna, because I thought you were leading to a very particular thing. But we'll jump into it here after this question, I think. So what does the cover revision process look like from your end, and how often do you get the author involved?
Oh, they're with me the entire time from start to finish in terms of that kind of stuff. The revision process, like different artists are going to have different parameters and that kind of stuff. And they're also going to show, like, some artists will show 3 initial sketches, and then you look at the sketches and then you pick one you like, and they revise that, and then you revise that, and you revise that, and you revise that. Because I work in 3D, when I render something, like, it comes out pretty close to photo real. Like, I mean, it's not a far jump to close the gap. The faces are usually the problem you have with 3D, and I've learned how to close that gap too. But so for me, when I work my process, the first proof that comes out, like on Old Age and Treachery, that right there, that's the first proof. No other changes were made. I sent that just like that with the typography, and they said, we love it, leave it alone, let it go. And so that happens. But I send the first proof for me on my process. I send the first proof polished, so the author doesn't have to guess at what it's going to look like. Doesn't have to guess what's going to be here, or this is gray. What's the color's going to look like? Like, I mean, I take the time to make sure it looks nice so they can see it, and then they can make any changes. I mean, literally they could say, I hate this. Let's start over, which has happened, but it's a rarity that happens, because I do talk to the author a good bit. We have a pretty solid understanding of where we're going to go on that first proof. So when they see that first proof, they're not surprised or shaken by what they see, and so that process for me works really well. I have 4 rounds of revision after that. Most of the time, most covers don't make it to the 4th round, and if they do, it's like, can you move this over here real quick, or can you do this? It's just a small change, and then we're done. So
Yeah, and I know personally, since you worked with Jamie on the We Dare covers, he's got a bit of an artistic background too. In fact, I think Haley has a cover that he's done, but yeah, two covers that he's done. So I'm sure like he was probably a lot easier to work with than maybe some others because he has the background.
yeah, that kind of stuff can play a factor. Just there's a little myriad of back end factors that come into when it comes to how an author sees the first proof and their reaction. And so yeah, authors who have like I've noticed authors that have published a lot of books are a lot like a mom who's got like 9 kids, and they're like, "Where's my 9th kid at? I'm sure they're in here somewhere. It's fine. It's fine. We're fine. It's gonna be fine." Versus a mom who's got 1 kid and it's like, "You don't touch my baby. This is my baby, and I will hold on to it. And you don't did you wash your hands?" It really is a very different approach when an author has multiple covers under their belt. I mean, and I understand that because it's just learning the process, and then as an author, first time author, second time author, you learn. Okay, I can let this go. I don't have to hold this so much. I don't have to focus here as much because now I know the ins and the outs and that kind of stuff. And authors that I've worked with on multiple covers, like I said, I might get 4 sentences. And because there's a trust thing there, and they know me now, they know they can just say, here's some details, go, and then don't bother me till you're done. So.
Yeah. And I would be remiss in mentioning, since you brought it up a little bit, for those of you who are sitting here now halfway through our episode, or actually this is probably close to the end of episode 1, and you're complaining that TradPub doesn't let us touch our babies at all, you're not wrong. Most TradPub probably will not let you work directly with the artist. You might be able to provide a cover brief, whatever else. A lot of what you're looking at when you're going to Jake or other book cover designers who work with authors directly or with small presses, that's where you're going to get a lot more choice. But I will say this, the answer is no if you don't ask. So, like even if you're looking at the TradPub deal, work with your agent, work with whoever your editor is. The answer is always no if you don't ask. Don't just assume it's a no.
But learn from my mistakes, because for my series that I just released last year, I did all the things that Jake has just told us to not do. So, Alexandre, if you're out there, he was my cover artist. She did your cover. Alexandre, I'm so sorry.
I can't say her last name. It's a funky last name.
Rito.
Yeah. Okay.
Book. Yeah. That was who did mine. I think it's a. Yeah. Anyway, love the covers, but I'm so sorry. So don't be like me.
It happens, man. And Shady's exactly right. I mean, in traditional publishing, and like even with some other small presses I've worked with, sometimes the author's not involved in the process. It just happens, and that's not. I know in the self-publishing world that's a big deal, but there's a reason, and it circles back to what I said earlier. Some people are text-based, and some people are visual-based, and so very rarely do those things cross over both realms that I've discovered. And so just even in my experiences doing all these covers with all these different authors, it can be very hard to talk them off the ledge and go, I think we should go this way and do this because this will package better. At the end of the day, and so it can be hard. And again, I know it's because you come from it from your end. You're having to hold all the plates and all that kind of stuff, But there is a valid reason for that for that process.
The cover she is specifically talking about is actually back behind her and on her left shoulder there.
It is. Can you see all of it?
No, not quite. It might actually appear on the recording, but in our view, we can't quite see all of it. But I know, like for my cover, working with Chris Kennedy, we gave a very basic brief, and the picture, kind of we did some. I say we. Casey Azell, my co-author, did some AI art, and we used that as kind of like our inspiration to write the whole story. And we're like, all right, well, let's just send that in and be like, hey, this is what inspired us. These are the keywords we need. Like, make it happen. And this is what they came out with, and it was an awesome cover, and it captured the whole identity of the book really well. Which was weird to say because noir, you think taxi cab, right? The actual car we talk about is a black Jaguar.
Yes.
So
yes.
it didn't matter though, right? Because who's gonna be able to tell the difference between a black Jaguar on a black cover, right?
Yeah.
So it was a very solid design choice, and I looked at it and I was like, is this too off? Is this gonna throw people? And it hasn't at all. Nobody's said a single thing about it. It has done its job exactly as it's supposed to. So.
Yep. It's the Lucky Charms cereal box. There is no leprechaun in the box, but you bought the damn cereal anyways.
I wrote that on our notes for you.
Huh?
I wrote that. I loved that in your class. I wrote that in our notes. There's no leprechaun in the box.
That's it, man. I mean, imagine that's one of the first things I teach in my class is, imagine you're on the cereal aisle at Walmart and you're looking for cereal. Or if you're going for sugary goodness, you're looking for the bright colors and the cartoon characters, the leprechauns and the captains and the Neanderthals. And if you're looking for smart, healthy stuff, you're looking for the minimal. You're looking for the minimal and the clean and the thin line and the very airy typography. But even before you get to the cereal aisle, if you don't know which cereal you're buying, if you're going to just pick one when you get there, you're already priming your pump for like the cereal you're going to want to get. I want sugar. I know what I'm looking for. I want, healthy. I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the berries and the strawberries and stuff. And none of that stuff's in the box. There's no caveman in the box. There's no leprechaun. There's no berries. There's no berries in the box. But you still buy it because of what the box promises. And that's where cover design is key and crucial. And that's where a cover artist can be key and crucial, is because we can say, let's use a taxi instead of a black Jaguar, because it's going to connect with the readers more than anything else. And it's going to move the product better than maybe a black Jaguar, or whatever, And so I mean, that's what it's about, man. There's no leprechaun in the box, but you still buy the box, still buy it anyway. Same thing. And like if you're a fantasy author, for example, and you don't have any dragons, don't put dragons on your cover. Okay? You don't have to do that. We're not trying to just mislead people, but you're just trying to create what the promise of the story is going to give the reader. And that's what it's all about, man.
Don't make an empty promise. Well, there you have it. That is your last episode of 2025. We'll return with part 2 in the new year. We hope you enjoyed listening to Jake talk about all the different things he does for cover design, and hopefully some of our authors out there got some good tidbits on what to do when you're working with an artist, as well as some basic world building and storytelling techniques, trying to simplify everything down a little bit more and not try to over explain things, whether it's through covers or your actual writing. As always, thanks for stopping by. Make sure to check our show notes where you can follow us or any of our guests. Next time, next episode, it'll be Please Judge This Book by Its Cover Part 2. Jake returns to finish up. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe anywhere you listen to this podcast. And as always, thanks for helping us tear the worlds asunder. We'll see you next time.